Thanks for clicking on this video. My name's Darren, and this is Electro Savvy, where we talk about electricity, tools, and tech. I have a very interesting subject today, and I'm sure many people have this problem, and we're gonna go through it, and I'm gonna tell you how to fix it right after this video.
What really messes with people's head is when you turn this one off. Now the power's gone. Nothing.
Okay, so I get these calls sometimes, and people are wondering why their lights work sometimes and sometimes they don't. And what they have here is some three-way circuits, or maybe it's a four-way switch. They may have just mixed up the traveler and the common, and today we're going to fix that problem. I'm going to show you a couple of different scenarios because it can be messed up in more than one way. All right, let's get into this video. Okay, so these are 5 switches that look identical, but they're not. I'm going to start with the first one, and this is a single pole switch. It's the most common. They have 2 terminals, and all it really does is break a switch leg. So I'm going to set it down and grab the next switch, which is a 3-way switch, and it has 2 brass terminals and a black terminal, so it has 3 terminals all together. You would use this on a 3-way switch circuit. The next switch I'm going to pick up is the 4-way switch. It has 4 terminals, 2 brass screws and 2 black screws. You would need this if you had a 4-way switch circuit. And just like the 3-way, the 4-way has no markings for on and off because they can be turned on in any position. This next switch looks just like the 4-way. It has 2 black screws and 2 brass screws, and this is a double pole switch, and it is marked with on and off. You can't use that on a 4-way. This next switch I'm picking up is actually just another 3-way switch, but it's an illuminated switch, so it has a light that comes on inside and it illuminates the toggle. Getting the right switch is important, so always make sure you're picking up the right switch for the right application.
Alright guys, so I hope I didn't confuse you with all of those switches that look very similar. I mean, they're damn near identical unless you flip them around and look at the lugs. But we're going to go over some common mistakes that people make every day with 3-way and 4-way switches, meaning that they have to turn a switch on at the hallway to get this switch working, but sometimes they both don't work unless this one's flipped up or down. And it's very confusing. Sometimes they live months on end without the light coming on because they don't understand what's going on. That's a switch system that works good. But I'm going to take you through a couple of scenarios where they don't work too good. Believe it or not, people live in their houses with them not working right for years because they don't know what's wrong. And they think electricians are too expensive, which that's not true. These types of switches are just like a girlfriend that blocks your number, meaning that the relationship has worked and you miss them. You miss having that light around. But it's just going to take a little understanding and fixing to get it back working again. All right, let's stop messing around. So let me show you what I'm talking about. And the whole reason I've taken this out is because I want to show you what the most common mistake is. So the first thing you noticed is this is the three-way switch. And you might know that because this one says off and on, so that's always going to be a single pole. This one has no markers, so you should know that this is a three-way. If you don't, then that's how you identify it. Okay, so what we're going to do is the most common mistake, and what that mistake is, crossing these two wires here, the black traveler and the hot, which is on the common screw. So there's two blacks, we're going to flip it, and then let's see what happens. Let's turn the breaker back on. All right, guys, so I'm gonna show you a way to identify the wires. Once you have them pulled out and separated, you need to turn the breaker back on. And yes, I am gonna be working on hot wires. That's what electricians do. If we didn't, we would be out of a job. But anyway, you take your meter, you put it in voltage, make sure it's reading AC, altered current, because that's what homes are. And what you want to do is, if you have a ground on a switch, touch it with one lead and go one by one. So I'm going to touch this one. I'm not getting a reading. I'm not getting a reading. I'm getting 123. So look, I just identified my hot. If it's an older house and you don't have a ground, go ahead and undo that neutral, because it's going, this is going to be the way you read that hot, because this is going to act as a ground, because it is going to ground. So look, there's another way to get that reading. All right, so I'm going to bend that down, put this wire nut back on here. All right, so let's say you're trying to identify your travelers. You want to put your meter in the ohms position. That means that these leads are ohming out. The same thing can be applied to these travelers. And I'm only adding this because obviously I know that these are travelers. It's coming out of this 3-conductor, red and black, so that's a dead giveaway. But these older houses, they sometimes were pulled in 12-2. They didn't have a 3-conductor wire with that red in it, so they used a white and black as a traveler. So they actually used the white in that 12-2 as one of the travelers. Now, how you go about doing that is either put in the white and black under a wire nut, or if you have a switch like a 4-way in the mix, you flip it in some kind of direction, in some kind of position. There's only 2 positions. All right, so I'm not getting a reading. So I'm gonna flip that 4-way the other direction. That would be just like if I put it underneath a wire nut, because they would be coming in contact with each other. Okay, so look, I ohm those travelers out. I know that this is the travelers that's going there. All right, I hope that helped y'all. All right, guys, so what I showed you just now was the most common mistake made with a 3-way switch. And that's simply just to get the traveler mixed up with the common. And this is what it does. So pay no attention to that light, because that was a single pole switch. Now I can't turn these switches on. None of these switches is going to work and make this light come on. So I can turn this switch on, and these will work just like they're supposed to. But if this switch goes off, if this one is turned off, this is not going to work. So basically what's going on is this switch here is acting like a single pole, And until this switch is engaged, it will not power up this system, making it not work. All right, and guys, this applies to both sides of a three-way switch. So I'm going to undo the other side of the three-way switch. The common is the light tail on this side, and I'm going to flip up those travelers. So we're going to see what happens now. Double wrong. All right, guys, if you're enjoying this kind of content, like this video and subscribe to my channel if you can. All right, back to the video. All right, y'all, I got the breaker back on, and let's see what this double wrong does, if it even does anything at all. Let's see. So a while ago, when it was just that side, these two switches could come on in any position. But now that we're missing another traveler, meaning that this switch will not be able to work right now or in the down position. Now this mistake right here, this is the most confusing that people have, and it's the most common, and it's also the easiest to fix. The black travelers and the commons mixed up, and it will do crazy stuff. We went through the three ways, and I showed you how those can be messed up with the travelers and the common being on the wrong terminal. Four-way can be just as confusing. Sometimes things will work like the three ways until somebody flips that four-way, and then the position changes. You got a 50-50 chance of getting it wrong. Without getting real technical with the way they're built inside, I would rather just show you the correct way to identify it and know that you're putting it in correct. A four-way has to have 2 3 conductors. Your neutral is twisted up, you got a red and black, and red and black. One's coming in and one's leaving out. And that's pretty much all you need to know. As far as the colors go, coming in and out, it doesn't matter. It really just matters if you keep the input on the input and the output on the output.
Okay, my grounds are bonded and made up together. I have the neutrals twisted together. I have 2 pigtails on the hot, a single switch leg, and my travelers for the three-way. So this is a three-way and a single pole in a double gang box. Okay, so I landed the ground. After I get that nice and tight, I'm going to flip the switch over and land the travelers. So that would be the red and black out of the 3 conductor wire. And the way you can tell that is that 3 conductor is going to have a red, a black, and a white. And that would be your 3 conductor. And by the way, this is the three-way switch I started with first. After I get those snug down, I'm going to grab that black hot pigtail, and I'm gonna land it under the black screw, which is called the common. The other three-way will be wired exactly the same. The only difference is the common will be the light tail instead of the hot. All right, moving over to the single pole switch. I'm gonna land the ground under the ground terminal. Snug that down nice and tight. I'm gonna grab the hot and the light tail at the same time and put them underneath the terminals. So after I get these nice and snug down and tight, I'm gonna shape the wires and start trying to install them in the box by folding up the wires and making it easy on myself, because you don't want a crammed up box with a rat nest of wires. So I try to fold them as neatly as I can where the grounds are not touching anything. It's nothing worse than snugging these switches down, doing all this work, and then have a breaker trip because a ground is touching a switch's terminal. So I'm pretty much done just finishing up, tightening these switches down, but that's pretty much it. Now here's the four-way switch. All right, 2 sets of travelers, one coming in, one coming out. I have my grounds that are bonded, neutrals that are twisted together. This is a 4-way switch with input and output terminals. You got your output and your input. So here I'm going to go ahead and snug down the ground to this switch. I'm going to flip it over, and we're going to start with the input travelers. I'm going to flip it over and put the red, and you don't want to mix these up. You want to make sure input travelers and output travelers are not mixed up. But here I'm installing the red and then the black, so they're separated. And it doesn't matter the colors, it just matters that you keep input on the input side and output on the output side. But I'm snugging this down with the screw gun, and that's pretty much it. The 4-way's done.
All right, y'all, well, that's just about it. Yeah, the biggest thing here is to identify your hot wire. Once you got that, whether it's your switch leg or your hot wire, you know that's gonna be your common. Your travelers are gonna be your travelers. And if you can keep that correct, you're gonna have some working switches. I hope this video can help the people that's having these same issues. And don't forget to turn your electricity off and work safe always. But I know there's plenty of people that's sitting home right now that either changed the switch or somebody fooled with some switches, and they're going through the same issues just like this today. My name's Darren, this is Electro Savvy, and I'll see you in the next video.